I'll just read the first 2 pages, and then you'll get the answer. Sergey, you'll get the answer. What was the Barracuda in the attic? In early 1967, my father was sent on assignment by the Saturday Evening Post to interview New York Congressman and civil rights leader Adam Clayton Powell, Jr., who was living in self-imposed exile at a retreat on the Bahamian Isle of Bimini. At least that was the plan. Recent coverage of the controversial politician's alleged financial impropriety had made him leery of any further harmful publicity. So when my father arrived, the former Harlem-based politician and preacher, who was then spending much of his time out of the media spotlight enjoying sport fishing, was less than cordial and kept him waiting for hours. When they finally met, my father was only granted a few minutes, and before he knew it, the interview was over. Their meeting ended on a high note, with each exchanging cigars. But my father didn't think he had enough material from the uncooperative politician for a story. His editors disagreed and insisted that he write about not getting the interview. So that's the story that ran under the apocryphal heading, Adam Clayton Powell at the End of the World. Forced to cool his heels while waiting to see Powell, my father did what any self-respecting writer with some downtime in the Bahamas would do. He went big game fishing. And much to his happy surprise, he quickly caught a bite. While it wasn't a 400-pound blue marlin like Hemingway's Santiago had caught in The Old Man and the Sea, he had hooked a respectable-sized barracuda. Being that this was his first and only attempt at sport fishing, he was quite proud of his accomplishment and couldn't wait to tell us all about it upon his return. Weeks later, when the large box arrived at our home in Great Neck, New York, I remember how he carefully removed the barracuda from its packing, recalling what a struggle it had been to reel in the big fish. It had been treated, stuffed, and mounted on a wooden board, and he proudly displayed his trophy in his office study in the attic of our home. I'm pretty sure it was my older brothers Josh and Drew, and not me, who first teased my father that the barracuda looked a little old, pointing out that it was also missing some teeth. Dejected, my father concluded that he had indeed caught an elderly barracuda. Not that we could really discern the age of a fish, and that it also appeared somewhat smaller than he remembered when first plucked from the Gulf Stream waters. It must have shrunk, he suggested, during the taxidermy process. But to my 6-year-old eyes, though, the cigar-shaped barracuda was quite an impressive catch. It was at least 2/3 of my height and body weight, and I thought it made a worthy addition to my father's office in the attic. I remember touching its button-like black eyes with my fingers and admiring the reddish-silver-blue hues that streaked its frame from gill to greenish tail. Most impressive, perhaps, were its uneven, fang-like, razor-sharp teeth, which jutted out from its open mouth, creating the impression that it was grinning maniacally as if it were having the last laugh. It reminded me of a picture I saw in Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine of Lon Chaney Sr. in the silent horror movie London After Midnight. That's the one where he filed his teeth, and it was really spooky looking. I couldn't stare too long at the fish without starting to feel scared and look away. My father placed the barracuda on a wall above a burgundy leather recliner where he often read and took cat naps after working long hours at the large oak desk that my mother had bought for him at a rummage sale. A year later, he would set a framed poster from his off-Broadway hit play, Scuba Duba, alongside the barracuda. The poster featured a drawing of a befuddled-looking frog in scuba gear, while referring to the play as a tense comedy. Its effect, next to the old barracuda, made it seem as though the menacing-looking fish and the bug-eyed scuba gear-wearing cartoon frog were indeed locked in an intense comedic standoff. And I'll stop there. Thank you.